Hey everybody, Danessa Gates here. Welcome to today's micro session on the moment you miss before burnout hits. So, the general idea is that most people think burnout starts when they feel exhausted, when they hit a wall, when they can't keep going, when something finally breaks. But that's not where it starts. Burnout does not start when you crash. It starts much earlier, when everything still looks fine. And that is what makes burnout so confusing for people because in the beginning, you're functioning, you're handling things, you're keeping up, you're getting things done. Nothing feels wrong yet. So there's no obvious thing or anything to respond to. But a layer deeper than that, underneath that, your system is already adapting. So there's a pattern here, right? Burnout doesn't begin with collapse, it begins with compensation. Subtle adjustments, small overrides, pushing past signals without noticing. And it's not because you're ignoring yourself, but because that shift is very quiet. It sounds like, I'm good. I've got it. It's fine, right? And technically, you do. And that's what makes those moments so easy to miss. So this is where people might ask me if I'm not exhausted yet, then what's the problem? Well, the problem is your system is doing extra work to keep you feeling functional. You're not operating at baseline anymore. You're operating through compensation. And compensation can feel normal for a long time, for some of us, decades, right? So burnout isn't the moment you feel bad, it's the accumulation of unnoticed compensation over time. You're not suddenly overwhelmed. You've been gradually overriding your system for a while. You just didn't feel it yet. So let's take an example. You've had a full week. You're still showing up, still responding, still handling things. But you start to notice you're a little shorter than usual. You get a little more irritable easily. You're a little more tired at night. You're a little less rested in the morning, a little less patient. So you can see it's nothing dramatic. So you keep going. That's the moment. So it's not the moment when everything just falls apart, but it's the moment when your system starts working harder to keep it all together. And so another question that people ask is like, well, then how do I know if I'm compensating? And that's a really valid question because compensation, it doesn't feel like a breakdown. It feels like holding it together, pushing through, staying functional, but at a slightly higher cost than before. So burnout doesn't start when you're overwhelmed. It starts when your system begins working harder than it should to maintain the same level of output. So I'll say that again. It starts when your system begins working harder than it should to keep the same level of output. That's why high performers miss it, because nothing is dramatic or obviously wrong in the beginning. Again, you're still performing, still delivering, still functioning. So there's no good reason to stop, or so it seems. But what's happening is the cost is quietly increasing. And eventually, your system can't compensate anymore. And this is where people ask me, well, should I stop every time something feels off? That doesn't feel feasible. Well, no, that's not what we're saying. This isn't about reacting to every signal. It's about recognizing when your baseline has shifted. When something that used to feel easy now takes more effort. That's information. So, practically, to bring it into your week, there's a simple shift. Instead of asking, well, what do I need to get done? Start asking yourself, what is this costing me right now? Not in a dramatic way, in a noticing and awareness way. Because burnout doesn't start with collapse, it starts with cost. And that's why the reset has to happen earlier than most people think. So at the end of your day, ask yourself, did today feel like baseline? Or did it feel like I had to hold it all together? That distinction matters more than you think. Because the goal isn't to wait until something breaks, right? It's to become someone who can notice the shift, recognize the cost, and respond before compensation turns into exhaustion. So, if this resonates, where do you notice yourself still functioning, but at a higher cost than usual? And next week, I'm going to take this even further because one of the biggest patterns I see is people normalize compensation until it becomes their baseline. So next week, we're going to break down how overfunctioning quietly becomes your identity. Okay, that was the micro session for today. And if this resonated with you, I would love to hear your thoughts. You can always DM me or whatever works for us to connect and talk about it because this stuff really fascinates me. And I always love hearing feedback on how other people experience this. So thanks for your time today and have a great week.